Hey everyone, I'm back with today's devotion, but first I have a couple of housekeeping matters. I realized that yesterday the videos that I've been attempting to post to Instagram thus far have been cut short because they're too long. So in case you've been following the devotions on Instagram and were wondering where yesterday's was, I had to create a new series on Instagram TV, and I've uploaded both of this week's previous devotions to that series. But you can also catch all of these devotions on our youth ministry webpage or any of our social media. I've added the links to the devotions and to our social media on the webpage, so you can find everything there. Once again, the idea for these devotions is for you to watch as a family and then have a brief conversation about the scripture and some questions that I provide. So we're still reading in Matthew 5, verses 38 through 42, and yesterday I asked you about the three teachings Jesus gives his disciples before he sends them out to share the good news with the people. Jesus tells his disciples to turn the other cheek, to give the shirts off their backs, and to go the extra mile. And we hear these things a lot today, but when we tell people to turn the other cheek, it usually means don't try to get revenge. When we describe someone as a person who would give the shirt off his back, we really mean that person is very generous. And whenever you hear a teacher or a coach say to go the extra mile, they mean for us to put in our very best effort and then some without being asked. So that's how we use it, but it may surprise you to learn that Jesus was actually teaching his disciples how to resist people who would have control over them. Even though Jesus says in verse 39, do not resist an evildoer, the Greek word for resist actually means to oppose with violence. So Jesus is actually teaching his disciples how to resist non-violently by showing mercy. I want to focus on just the first teaching in verse 39, which tells us to turn the other cheek. In Jesus' time, there was a lot of importance placed on purity and honor, a lot of rules about what was considered right and wrong, and that included rules about which hand was appropriate to use for a task. Most people were right-handed, and so the right hand was considered the proper hand for greetings, exchanging money, things like that. But the left hand was considered unclean. If you ate or picked up something with your left hand, it was considered extremely rude. So we can imagine that if someone was going to strike you on your cheek, they would do it with their right hand because that was the proper hand. And if you used your right hand, you would strike a person's left cheek if you're facing that person. That means if you were to turn your other cheek, that being your right cheek, the attacker would then have to use his left hand, which would bring him dishonor. In other words, by turning the other cheek and showing mercy, you're taking away all the power from the attacker and you're actually bringing shame upon them. And this sounds incredibly strange to us today, but in Jesus' time, it would have made a lot of sense to his disciples. So that's where I'll leave things today. I want you to consider Matthew chapter 5, verse 39 as a family and think about it in light of this new information that I've shared with you. Talk about how nonviolent resistance and mercy can be used to take power away from ugly, mean people like bullies. Perhaps you've been on the receiving end of a bully's attack, or perhaps you've been the one attacking someone else before. This verse invites us to really look at how we respond in tense situations. Tomorrow, I'll hope to focus on the next teaching, the one about giving the shirt off your back. But until then, stay healthy, stay safe. Feel free to share this devotion with your tribe. I hope to see you soon.